The origins of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire began as a modest Turkic principality in northwestern Anatolia, led by Osman I, a remarkable leader from the Kai tribe. The Kai were one of many Turkish tribes in Anatolia, each striving for influence in the region, and were part of the broader Seljuk sphere of control. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, which had once dominated Anatolia during the 11th and 12th centuries, was in sharp decline by the late 13th century. This decline was caused by a combination of internal political fragmentation, constant succession disputes, economic difficulties, and increasing pressure from external forces such as the Mongols. The weakening of Seljuk authority created a power vacuum, providing an opportunity for Osman and his followers to carve out their own political and military domain. Osman Yamsta, born around 1258 in the region of Bithynia, near the Byzantine frontier, inherited both a principality and a network of alliances from his father, Ertugrul. Ertugrul had established a modest domain along the borderlands, skillfully balancing relationships with neighbouring Turkish tribes and, at times, Byzantine factions. These alliances were not based solely on loyalty or ideology, but were often pragmatic arrangements designed to secure survival and territorial advantage in a region marked by shifting allegiances. Osman's inheritance included not just land and resources, but also a reputation for leadership and a web of political connections, both of which would prove essential in his early campaigns. The Byzantine Empire, long the dominant power in Anatolia and the eastern Mediterranean, was itself in a period of profound decline. Years of internal conflict, civil wars, and external invasions had severely weakened Byzantine authority, particularly in peripheral provinces. This allowed Osman to focus on the border regions where Byzantine control had eroded, making it possible to seize territory with relatively limited resistance. Early Ottoman expansion was therefore as much about exploiting political opportunities as it was about military conquest. Osman's approach combined martial skill, political acumen, and strategic diplomacy. By forging alliances with neighbouring tribes and local Byzantine leaders, he demonstrated an early understanding of statecraft, which would later become a defining characteristic of Ottoman governance. One of the first major military successes under Osman I came in 1302 at the Battle of Baphius, a pivotal encounter against a Byzantine army. Although small by later standards, this battle had enormous symbolic and strategic significance. It solidified Ottoman credibility among other Turkish groups in Anatolia and demonstrated that the emerging principality could challenge a historically dominant power. Baphius marked a turning point, establishing the Ottomans as a serious regional force. Following this, Osman continued to expand his territory through both warfare and negotiation, steadily consolidating his influence in northwestern Anatolia. By 1326, Osman's successor Orhan captured the city of Bursa, which became the first major Ottoman capital. This capture represented more than a military victory. It symbolized the transformation of the Ottomans from a frontier principality into a more structured state. Bursa served as an administrative and economic center, facilitating the development of governance, taxation, and military organization. The city's capture also enabled the Ottomans to establish a stable base from which to expand into the surrounding regions, laying the groundwork for centuries of growth. The early Ottoman state was notable for its pragmatic and adaptive approach to governance. Osman and his successors incorporated elements of Seljuk administrative practices, such as the use of appointed provincial governors, while also retaining certain Byzantine systems, including methods of taxation and local administration. This flexibility allowed the Ottomans to govern diverse populations effectively, including Muslims, Christians, and Jews, while maintaining stability in newly conquered territories. By blending military strength with administrative innovation, the early Ottomans created a model that could sustain long-term expansion and cohesion. Beyond military and administrative achievements, Osman's legacy lies in his vision for political unity and institution building. He recognized that survival and growth required more than battlefield victories. It required the integration of conquered peoples, the establishment of alliances, and the creation of institutions capable of managing an expanding realm. His ability to unite disparate Turkish tribes, cultivate loyalty among local populations, and exploit the shifting political landscape of Anatolia laid the foundation for the emergence of a lasting dynasty. Osman's leadership exemplified how adaptability, foresight, and strategic diplomacy could transform a small tribal principality into the nucleus of a global empire. The Ottoman state that emerged under Osman V illustrates the interplay between opportunity and leadership. The decline of surrounding powers, combined with Osman's strategic skill, allowed a relatively small group to establish control over key territories. Osman's emphasis on pragmatic alliances, effective administration, and military prowess created a durable framework that would enable his successors to expand the empire dramatically. Over the following centuries, the empire would grow from a regional power in Anatolia into one of the most enduring empires in world history, spanning 3 continents and influencing cultures from Europe to the Middle East. In conclusion, the origins of the Ottoman Empire are a testament to the importance of leadership, opportunity, and adaptability in the creation of lasting political institutions. Osman I's combination of martial skill, diplomatic acumen, and vision for governance transformed his small principality into a foundation capable of sustaining centuries of expansion. The early Ottoman state demonstrates how a strategic blend of military conquest, alliance building, and administrative innovation can produce a resilient and enduring empire, setting the stage for the rise of one of history's most influential powers. The Seljuk Empire and the rise of Osman V, the Ottoman Empire, did not emerge in isolation. It was deeply rooted in the complex political, cultural, and military legacy of the Seljuk Empire, which dominated much of the Middle East from the 11th to the 13th centuries. The Seljuks, a Turkish-speaking people originally from Central Asia, first gained prominence as military allies of the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad. Over time, under leaders like Tughril Beg, the Seljuks gradually consolidated political authority. Tughril Beg's entrance into Baghdad in 1055, where he secured recognition as Sultan from the Abbasid Caliph, marked a turning point in the balance of power, establishing the Seljuks as both military and political leaders in the Islamic world. The Seljuk Empire reached a new peak under Sultan Alp-Arslan, whose decisive victory at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071 against the Byzantine Empire opened Anatolia to Turkish settlement. This battle is often regarded as a watershed moment in the history of the region because it created conditions for the establishment of numerous Turkish principalities, which would later include the nascent Ottoman state. The Seljuks were more than mere conquerors. They were institution builders, creating administrative systems, legal codes, and cultural practices that would influence later empires. They combined Islamic law with Turkish tribal governance, a system that allowed both order and flexibility in governing diverse populations. Economically, the Seljuks played a central role in facilitating trade across Anatolia and beyond. Their control over parts of the Silk Road brought wealth and cultural exchange, connecting cities like Baghdad, Nishapur, and Isfahan to markets and intellectual centers across Asia and Europe. The Seljuks were also notable patrons of the arts, architecture, and learning. Seljuk architecture, distinguished by its grand domes, intricate tile work, geometric designs, and decorative calligraphy, established aesthetic standards that would leave a lasting imprint on Ottoman mosque and palace design. Though the Seljuk Empire eventually fragmented due to internal divisions, succession disputes, and the devastating invasions of the Mongols, its political structures, military strategies, and cultural achievements provided a foundation upon which later leaders, including Osman I, would build. It was into this environment of fragmentation and opportunity that Osman I was born, around 1258, in Bithynia, near the frontier with the Byzantine Empire. Osman was a member of the Kai tribe, one of several Turkish groups that had migrated from Central Asia and served under the Seljuks. By the late 13th century, Seljuk authority in Anatolia had weakened considerably, and the Byzantine Empire, once a dominant power, was similarly weakened by internal conflict, civil wars, and external pressures. This dual decline created a power vacuum in northwestern Anatolia that Osman skillfully exploited. Osman's rise to prominence was characterized by a combination of military skill, diplomacy, and political vision. Early in his leadership, he forged alliances with neighboring Turkish tribes, which provided crucial support for both defense and expansion. He also sometimes negotiated with local Byzantine leaders, demonstrating the pragmatic nature of frontier politics in Anatolia. These alliances were not merely tactical, but reflected an understanding of the complex social and political networks that defined the region. Osman's ability to navigate these dynamics was as important to his success as his battlefield achievements. One of his earliest and most significant military victories came at the Battle of Baphius in 1302, where Ottoman forces decisively defeated a Byzantine army. This battle had both symbolic and strategic significance. It established Osman and his followers as credible leaders among rival Turkish tribes and demonstrated the military potential of the emerging Ottoman principality. Following Baphius, Osman was able to consolidate control over surrounding territories, gradually expanding his principality while maintaining the loyalty of his allies. Under Osman, the foundations of Ottoman governance began to take shape. He implemented early administrative structures to oversee both military and civilian affairs, fostering social cohesion among diverse populations. Islam was promoted as a unifying identity, not only as a spiritual framework but also as a tool for governance and social organization. These early measures facilitated the transition from a loosely organized tribal confederation into a more centralized state, a process that would continue under his son and successor Orhan. In 1326, Orhan captured the city of Bursa, establishing it as the first major Ottoman capital, symbolizing the principality's evolution into a structured political entity capable of long-term expansion. Osman's leadership exemplifies the interplay between opportunity, skill, and vision. He capitalized on the decline of neighboring powers, adapted Seljuk administrative practices, and cultivated alliances that extended his influence. The early Ottoman state was therefore not merely a product of military conquest, but also of strategic governance, cultural integration, and pragmatic diplomacy. By unifying diverse groups and navigating the fragmented political landscape of Anatolia, Osman laid the foundation for centuries of Ottoman expansion, influence, and enduring legacy. In conclusion, the rise of Osman was shaped by the political and cultural inheritance of the Seljuk Empire, the weakening of Byzantine and Seljuk authority, and the strategic opportunities of northwestern Anatolia. His combination of military prowess, political acumen, and institution building created a durable framework for the Ottoman state, transforming a small tribal principality into the nucleus of an empire that would span 3 continents and influence world history for centuries. Osman Thurf's life and leadership underscore the importance of vision, adaptability, and pragmatic governance in the creation of lasting political power. The rise of Osman, founder of the Ottoman state. Osman IV, born around 1258 in Bithynia, near the Byzantine frontier, emerged as the founder of the Ottoman Empire during a period of profound political fragmentation in Anatolia. This era was characterized by the decline of the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, whose authority had once extended over much of the region, and the simultaneous weakening of the Byzantine Empire, long a dominant power in northwestern Anatolia. The political vacuum created by these overlapping declines presented both risks and opportunities for ambitious local leaders like Osman. His rise would be defined by a combination of military skill, political acumen, and strategic foresight, setting the stage for the establishment of one of history's most enduring empires. Osman inherited leadership of the Kai tribe from his father, Ertugrul, who had migrated from Central Asia and established a foothold in northwestern Anatolia. The Kai tribe was part of a larger network of Turkish tribes that had migrated westward in search of new territories following the Mongol incursions into Central Asia. Under Ertugrul, the Kai had maintained alliances with other Turkish groups and occasionally with local Byzantine authorities, gaining a reputation as both formidable warriors and pragmatic negotiators. These relationships would serve Osman well as he sought to expand his own authority. By the time Osman assumed leadership, the Seljuk state had been weakened by internal strife and Mongol pressure, leaving its former subjects vulnerable and fragmented, and creating an environment ripe for the emergence of new power centres. Osman's early leadership was marked by both diplomacy and strategic alliances, reflecting a nuanced understanding of Anatolia's fragmented political landscape. Rather than relying solely on military conquest, he actively cultivated relationships with neighbouring Turkish tribes, as well as occasionally forging arrangements with local Byzantine leaders. These alliances were pragmatic and flexible, often shifting as circumstances demanded, and they provided Osman with both legitimacy and additional manpower. In this environment, successful governance required not just strength in battle, but also the ability to navigate complex networks of loyalty, negotiation, and mutual benefit. Osman's skill in this area helped him consolidate power without relying solely on force, demonstrating an early aptitude for statecraft. A turning point in Osman's rise was the Battle of Baphius in 1302, where his forces decisively defeated a Byzantine army. This victory was significant on multiple levels. Militarily, it secured Ottoman control over key frontier territories and demonstrated Osman's effectiveness as a military leader. Politically, it enhanced his prestige among neighbouring Turkish groups, solidifying his reputation as a capable and visionary leader. Strategically, the victory allowed Osman to extend his influence into regions that were previously contested or loosely governed, setting a precedent for future expansion. Baphius was not simply a military triumph. It symbolised the consolidation of Osman's authority and the establishment of a power base that could evolve into a sustainable polity. In addition to his military and political achievements, Osman laid the foundations for Ottoman governance and administrative structure. He introduced early institutions that balanced the needs of his military forces, tribal organisation, and civic administration. These early administrative measures included mechanisms for taxation, land distribution, and the integration of conquered populations, which provided stability and encouraged loyalty among diverse groups. Osman's focus on creating governance structures, rather than merely relying on conquest, demonstrated his understanding that lasting power depended on institutional resilience. The capture of Bursa in 1326, achieved under his son Orhan, marked the transformation of the Ottoman Principality into a centralized state. This milestone reflected how Osman's strategic groundwork enabled the next generation to formalize the institutions and infrastructure necessary for sustained expansion. Beyond politics, warfare, and administration, Osman's leadership had a spiritual and ideological dimension. He promoted Islam as a unifying social and political force, reinforcing his authority while providing a framework for cohesion among the diverse groups within his realm. This approach not only legitimized his leadership but also fostered a shared sense of identity among his followers. Osman's vision integrated faith, pragmatism, and foresight, blending military and political strategy with cultural and religious consolidation. By positioning Islam as a central element of governance, Osman created a sense of unity that could support both the internal stability of his emerging state and its external expansion into Byzantine and Anatolian territories. Osman's legacy is profound. He transformed the leadership of a small frontier tribe into the foundation of a state capable of enduring and expanding for centuries. His rise illustrates the interplay of opportunity, leadership, diplomacy, and institutional innovation in the creation of a lasting polity. By navigating a volatile environment with strategy and adaptability, Osman I established not only territorial control, but also the administrative and ideological structures that would enable the Ottoman Empire to evolve into a regional and eventually global power. His leadership set the tone for the Ottoman dynasty, emphasizing the combination of martial prowess, political acumen, and religious legitimacy as essential components of state building. In conclusion, Osman I's ascent from the leader of a modest tribal principality to the founder of the Ottoman state represents a critical juncture in Anatolian history. His success was rooted in his ability to capitalize on the decline of the Seljuk and Byzantine powers, his skill in forging alliances, and his foresight in laying the administrative and religious foundations for the emerging state. Osman's blend of military strategy, diplomatic negotiation, governance, and ideological cohesion created a model of leadership that would define the Ottoman Empire for generations. The rise of Osman I is a testament to how visionary leadership, opportunity, and adaptability can combine to establish an enduring empire that shapes the course of history for centuries to come. Early Ottoman tribes and their nomadic heritage. The early Ottomans emerged from Turkish-speaking tribes that had migrated westward from Central Asia, carrying with them a nomadic lifestyle shaped by centuries on the Eurasian steppes. Their mobility, adaptability, and military skills were forged in harsh environments, providing the foundation for the rise of the Ottoman state. Among these tribes, the Kayi, Osman Dia's lineage, played a pivotal role. Like other Turkic nomads, the Kayis lived in portable tents, herded livestock, and moved seasonally, developing exceptional skills in horsemanship and guerrilla warfare. Their mobility allowed them to conduct raids, defend territory, and respond swiftly to shifting political and military conditions. These traits, inherited from centuries of nomadic life, became central to early Ottoman military strategy. By the 13th century, the Seljuk Empire, once the dominant power in Anatolia, was weakening under internal divisions and external pressures, leaving a political vacuum. Many nomadic tribes, including the Kayes, exploited this opportunity to settle near Byzantine territories. Some had already been granted land by the Seljuks in exchange for military service, a pattern that combined traditional nomadic mobility with emerging territorial control. Under Ertugrul, Osman's father, the Kai settled in Bithynia near the Byzantine frontier. There, they gradually balanced pastoral traditions with farming, trade and alliance building, integrating themselves into the local economy while maintaining nomadic military skills. Osman Thamai would expand upon this foundation, consolidating territory through both conquest and diplomacy. The nomadic heritage of the early Ottomans directly influenced their military tactics. Mobility and adaptability enabled rapid strikes and strategic retreats, while decentralized tribal organization allowed for flexible command structures. Social cohesion within the tribe, loyalty to the leader and kinship ties, reinforced Osman's ability to gather followers and project power beyond the tribe. These social structures would later inform the administrative organization of the Ottoman state. As the Ottomans settled more permanently, they adapted to agrarian life, supplementing military prowess with trade, agriculture, and emerging civic institutions. This combination of nomadic skill and settled stability allowed them to grow both wealth and population, laying the material and social foundations for a centralized state. Importantly, the legacy of mobility, adaptability, and strategic innovation remained embedded in Ottoman military and political culture. In summary, the early Ottoman tribes, particularly the Kai, illustrate how nomadic traditions shaped the emergence of a successful polity. Their combination of martial skill, social cohesion, and adaptability allowed a small frontier tribe to evolve into a structured and resilient state, setting the stage for the centuries-long expansion of the Ottoman Empire. The role of religion in shaping the empire. Religion was a central force in the development and expansion of the Ottoman Empire. As a Muslim-majority polity, Islam served not only as a personal faith, but also as a unifying framework that shaped political, social, and cultural life. The sultans were seen as both temporal and spiritual leaders, and their authority was reinforced by religious legitimacy, which helped maintain stability across a diverse empire. Early Ottoman rulers, including Osman I, were deeply committed to Islam, and this devotion bolstered their authority. Later sultans, such as Mehmed and Suleiman the Magnificent, similarly presented themselves as champions of the faith. Their role as protectors of Islam gained them support from religious scholars, the ulama, and Muslim populations in newly conquered territories, reinforcing both social cohesion and political control. Islam also structured governance through the application of Sharia law. The ulama advised the sultan and administered justice in matters of religion, family law, and personal conduct, creating a system in which religious and secular authority were closely intertwined. This fusion helped legitimize the sultan's rule while providing a legal framework for managing a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. At the same time, the Ottomans practiced pragmatic tolerance. Through the millet system, non-Muslim communities, such as Christians and Jews, were allowed to maintain their religious practices and internal governance in exchange for loyalty to the sultan. This system promoted social order and allowed diverse populations to coexist while ensuring centralized control, demonstrating how religion could be both integrative and regulatory. Religion also influenced military and expansionist policy. Concepts like jihad were sometimes invoked to justify campaigns against non-Muslim states, particularly in Europe. The 1453 conquest of Constantinople exemplified this intersection of faith and politics. It was framed as both a strategic military victory and a religious triumph, transforming the city into a Muslim imperial capital, Istanbul. In sum, religion was far more than a personal or spiritual matter for the Ottoman rulers. It was a tool of governance, social organization, and military strategy. Islam shaped the empire's identity, provided legitimacy to its leaders, and enabled the administration of a vast and diverse population, leaving a lasting imprint on the Ottoman state and its place in world history. Osman's struggle for power and territory. Osman II, the founder of the Ottoman Empire, faced formidable challenges as he sought to establish a principality in a politically fragmented Anatolia. Born around 1258, He inherited leadership of the Kai tribe from his father, Ertugrul, during a time when the Seljuk Empire was collapsing under Mongol pressure and internal divisions. The weakening of the Byzantine Empire created both opportunities and risks, positioning Osman at the centre of a volatile frontier region. Anatolia in Osman's era was a patchwork of Byzantine holdings, Seljuk remnants, and independent Turkish tribes. The disintegration of Seljuk authority created a power vacuum that Osman skillfully exploited. The Byzantine Empire, though still influential, was diminished, and its military was increasingly stretched, allowing Osman to expand into Bithynia near the frontier. Osman's early challenge was consolidating authority among rival Turkish tribes. Success required more than battlefield skill. He was also a pragmatic diplomat, forging alliances with neighbouring chieftains and local Byzantine leaders. This combination of negotiation and force allowed him to secure key territory and resources. His first major military victory, the Battle of Baphius in 1302, decisively defeated a Byzantine force and demonstrated his growing strategic capability. The victory boosted his prestige and enabled the Kai tribe to control critical frontier locations. Expansion was neither swift nor uncontested. Osman faced persistent threats from Byzantine forces attempting to defend their borders, as well as rival Turkish groups competing for influence. His approach balanced adaptability, diplomacy, and military action. Rather than relying solely on brute force, Osman cultivated loyalty through alliances, strategic marriages, and equitable treatment of subordinate groups, building a stable base for future growth. A landmark achievement under Osman's leadership was the establishment of Bursa as a major centre in 1326, though its full capture and development occurred under his son, Orhan. Bursa's strategic location and wealth made it an ideal capital, providing the economic and administrative infrastructure needed for the nascent Ottoman state. It became a springboard for further expansion into Byzantine territory and the surrounding region. Osman's struggle for power was therefore both military and institutional. By the time of his death in 1326, he had created a small but cohesive polity, united under his leadership and adaptable enough to endure future challenges. His legacy was not merely territorial, it lay in the governance structures, social cohesion, and strategic vision that allowed his successors to expand and transform the principality into a durable empire. Osman's ability to navigate a complex frontier environment, combining diplomacy, faith, and military strategy, laid the foundation for the Ottoman Empire's long-term rise. The expansion of Ottoman lands, early battles. The early expansion of the Ottoman Empire was driven by a combination of strategic military campaigns, diplomatic manoeuvring, and opportunistic exploitation of weakened neighbours. Osman Twas laid the foundation for this territorial growth, but it was his successors, Orhan and later Murad Afan, who transformed the Ottomans from a frontier principality into a regional power. The first significant military milestone was the Battle of Baphius in 1302. Osman's forces decisively defeated a Byzantine army, establishing Ottoman credibility and allowing the Kai tribe to consolidate control over key frontier territories in Bithynia. This victory demonstrated the importance of combining mobility, strategic positioning, and local alliances, traits inherited from the Ottomans' nomadic heritage. After Osman's death, his son Orhan continued the expansion. A critical step was the capture of Bursa in 1326, a wealthy and strategically located city that became the first Ottoman capital. The acquisition of Bursa provided a stable administrative centre and a base for further campaigns. It also exemplified the Ottomans' pragmatic approach, combining military conquest with integration of local populations and infrastructure to strengthen governance. The text previously attributed the Battle of Köse-Dağ, 1243, to Orhan, which is incorrect. That battle involved the Seljuks and Mongols and occurred decades before Orhan's rule. While Köse-Dağ weakened the Seljuks and indirectly benefited emerging Ottoman leaders, Orhan himself was not involved. Correctly situating this context clarifies the Ottoman rise as opportunistic rather than directly connected to this battle. Orhan expanded westward, capturing several fortresses and securing control over key trade routes, which enhanced the economic and strategic strength of the nascent state. His son, Murad III, further extended Ottoman influence into the Balkans. The Battle of Maritsa in 1371 was a turning point, decisively defeating Serbian forces and enabling Ottoman consolidation over much of southeastern Europe. Murad's campaigns into Bulgaria and beyond set the stage for sustained Ottoman expansion into Europe. These early military victories were more than mere territorial gains. They reinforced the legitimacy of Ottoman leadership, strengthened social cohesion, and demonstrated the effectiveness of combining mobility, disciplined forces, and pragmatic diplomacy. Each conquest built upon previous successes, gradually transforming the Ottomans from a small tribal principality into a powerful regional entity. The foundation laid during this period would enable the empire to pursue its later conquests across Anatolia, the Balkans, and beyond, the legacy of the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire, which endured for over 1,000 years from the fall of Rome in 476 AD to its conquest by the Ottoman Turks in 1453, left a profound and multifaceted legacy across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Far from being merely a continuation of Rome, the Byzantines actively preserved, adapted, and expanded upon classical knowledge, legal traditions, religious practices, and artistic achievements, shaping both medieval and modern civilizations. Their role as intermediaries between the ancient and medieval worlds helped ensure that critical knowledge and cultural practices survived periods of instability and transformation. One of the empire's most enduring contributions lies in law. Under Emperor Justinian I, 527–765 AD, the Corpus Juris Civilis, or body of civil law, systematically codified centuries of Roman legal thought. This code not only stabilized governance and clarified rights and responsibilities within the empire, but also influenced legal systems far beyond its borders, laying the foundation for modern civil law traditions in Europe and beyond. While the code facilitated centralized authority, it also reflected and reinforced social hierarchies of the time, highlighting how law can simultaneously preserve knowledge and sustain inequality. The Byzantines were also essential guardians of classical learning. In the wake of the Western Roman Empire's collapse, much Greek and Roman knowledge risked being lost. Byzantine scholars meticulously preserved, copied, and translated works in philosophy, mathematics, medicine, and natural sciences. These efforts later fed into the European Renaissance, illustrating the empire's critical role in transmitting intellectual heritage. Yet it is important to recognize that this preservation was selective and often shaped by religious and political priorities, demonstrating that the transmission of knowledge is always filtered through cultural lenses. Religion formed the core of Byzantine identity and influence. The empire played a decisive role in shaping Eastern Orthodox Christianity, producing liturgical traditions and theological frameworks that endure today. Byzantine missionaries, such as Saints Cyril and Methodius, extended this influence to Slavic regions, creating the Cyrillic alphabet and enabling local populations to engage directly with Christian texts. While this spread of faith brought cultural cohesion, it also involved complex negotiations of power, often intertwining religious authority with political control. Architecturally, the Byzantines achieved innovations that resonated far beyond their borders. The Hagia Sophia, with its soaring dome and intricate mosaics, exemplifies both aesthetic vision and engineering ingenuity. Byzantine architectural principles influenced not only Eastern Orthodox Church design, but also Islamic and Western European architecture, demonstrating the empire's capacity to inspire across cultural and religious lines. Similarly, Byzantine art, through icons, manuscript illumination, and mosaics, combined devotional function with artistic sophistication, shaping visual culture for centuries. These artistic achievements, however, were often reserved for elite audiences, reflecting the social hierarchies embedded within Byzantine society. Ultimately, the Byzantine Empire's legacy is one of transmission and transformation. Its preservation of law, knowledge, religious traditions, and artistic innovation bridged epochs and regions, influencing diverse civilizations long after its fall. While the empire faced internal challenges, such as political instability and religious controversies, and external pressures from invading powers, its cultural and intellectual contributions endured. By examining the Byzantine experience, we can see how empires both preserve and reshape human knowledge and creativity, leaving legacies that are complex, sometimes contradictory, but undeniably influential in shaping the modern world. The Conquest of Bursa, a turning point. The conquest of Bursa in 1326 marked a pivotal moment in the early history of the Ottoman Empire, serving as a defining milestone that transformed the Ottomans from a frontier principality into a centralized and enduring state. For the Ottomans, this victory was far more than a territorial acquisition. It represented the consolidation of political authority, the establishment of economic and military foundations, and the creation of a model for governance and cultural development that would shape the empire for centuries to come. Bursa was strategically located in northwest Anatolia, positioned along key trade routes that linked the eastern and western regions of the peninsula. Its geographic location allowed control over commerce between the interior of Anatolia and the Aegean coast, making it a city of immense economic importance. In addition to its wealth, Bursa was culturally and politically significant, possessing urban infrastructure, a sizable population, and symbolic authority as a Byzantine stronghold. Its capture signaled the emergence of the Ottomans as a regional power capable of challenging the remnants of Byzantine influence and asserting their authority over neighbouring territories. The campaign to capture Bursa was orchestrated by Orhan, the son of Osman I, who had inherited his father's vision of expansion and state-building. Orhan was a capable military leader and a skilled strategist, having already secured victories against Byzantine forces and rival Turkish principalities. Bursa, however, remained one of the last major Byzantine urban centres in the region, heavily fortified and resistant to simple frontal assault. Its capture required more than brute military force. It demanded careful planning, the use of siege tactics, and diplomatic engagement with surrounding communities. Orhan's ability to combine military strategy with political insight was instrumental in the success of the campaign. At the time, the Byzantine defenders were weakened by internal divisions, political instability, and a declining central authority that rendered them unable to effectively resist determined attackers. Recognizing these vulnerabilities, Orhan's forces implemented a comprehensive strategy that combined direct military pressure with economic and psychological tactics. Ottoman forces systematically isolated Bursa, cutting off supply lines, intercepting reinforcements, and besieging the city from multiple directions. Meanwhile, Orhan engaged diplomatically with neighbouring towns, tribes, and disillusioned Byzantine factions, securing support or at least neutrality, which prevented the defenders from gaining external assistance. This dual approach of military and political manoeuvring exemplified the emerging Ottoman model of statecraft, where diplomacy and strategic calculation were as important as battlefield success. In 1326, Bursa surrendered to Orhan, marking the first major urban conquest of the Ottoman Empire. The capture of the city provided a secure operational base, enabling the Ottomans to control critical trade routes, access fertile agricultural lands, and expand their administrative reach. Economically, Bursa's integration into Ottoman territory bolstered the nascent state's resources, providing revenue that could support further military campaigns, infrastructure development, and the growth of urban institutions. Militarily, it offered a defensible stronghold from which the Ottomans could project power into surrounding regions, laying the groundwork for subsequent expansion into western Anatolia and eventually into Europe. Beyond its practical significance, Bursa held immense symbolic value as the first major city under Ottoman control. Recognizing the importance of establishing administrative cohesion, Orhan designated Bursa as the empire's first capital, signaling a shift from a mobile frontier confederation to a structured, centralized state. Under his guidance, Bursa developed into a cultural, religious, and educational hub. Mosques, madrasas, and caravanserais were established to facilitate worship, learning, and trade, fostering a sense of community and stability. This infrastructure also served to integrate newly conquered populations into the Ottoman system, promoting loyalty and a shared identity, while preserving the economic vitality of the region. The conquest of Bursa also set important precedents for Ottoman governance and military organization. The siege demonstrated the effectiveness of combining tactical flexibility with strategic planning, emphasizing siege warfare, supply line management, and coalition building. Administratively, Orhan's management of the city illustrated the practical application of early Ottoman governance models, blending Seljuk traditions with newly developed systems to manage taxation, property, and civil affairs. These innovations would later be adapted and expanded as the Ottomans continued to grow in size and complexity, influencing their approach to future conquests, including the monumental capture of Constantinople in 1453. Moreover, Bursa became a centre for cultural and religious development, reflecting the Ottomans' commitment to promoting Islam as a unifying social and political force. By building mosques, supporting religious scholars, and encouraging the development of civic institutions, the Ottomans not only consolidated their authority, but also cultivated a shared cultural identity that helped integrate diverse populations. Bursa thus became a model for the creation of urban centres that combined military, economic, and cultural significance, an approach that would characterise Ottoman expansion for centuries. In conclusion, the conquest of Bursa in 1326 was a transformative event in the early history of the Ottoman Empire. It marked the shift from a tribal confederation conducting frontier raids to a centralised, structured state with administrative, economic, and military foundations. Bursa provided the Ottomans with a secure capital, control over vital trade routes, and access to resources necessary for expansion. Its capture demonstrated the importance of combining military strategy with political diplomacy and set a precedent for governance, urban development, and cultural integration. The fall of Bursa was more than a victory on the battlefield. It represented the emergence of the Ottomans as a regional power and laid the groundwork for the empire's remarkable growth into a dominant force spanning Europe, Asia, and Africa. The reign of Orhan, institutionalizing power. Orhan, the son of Osman the Yamsur, inherited leadership of the Ottoman Principality in 1326 following his father's death, stepping into a period of both opportunity and challenge. The small frontier principality that Osman had built was poised for growth, but transforming a tribal confederation into a structured, centralized state required visionary leadership, administrative innovation, and strategic foresight. Orhan's reign marked a pivotal transition in Ottoman history, as he established the foundations of governance, military organization, and cultural development that would enable the empire to flourish in the centuries to come. One of Orhan's most significant contributions was the formalization and expansion of the Ottoman military. Under Osman I, the Ottomans had relied on tribal warriors, organized along familial and clan lines. These forces were capable in battle, but lacked the cohesion and discipline needed for sustained campaigns or the defense of larger territories. Recognizing this limitation, Orhan began to professionalize the military, establishing early forms of what would become the Janissary Corps. Although the fully institutionalized Janissaries would only emerge under Murad I, Orhan's reforms laid the groundwork for a centrally controlled military force. His soldiers were trained in both martial techniques and Islamic principles, emphasizing loyalty directly to the Sultan rather than to individual tribal leaders. This innovation enhanced military effectiveness, reduced the influence of rival tribal factions, and ensured that the Ottomans could project power over a wider area. In governance, Orhan introduced a more systematic administrative structure to manage the growing territories under Ottoman control. He formalized the role of beys, local governors tasked with overseeing provinces and reporting directly to the central authority. This framework allowed for decentralized administration while maintaining oversight from the Sultan, balancing efficiency with centralized control. Orhan's administrative reforms created the blueprint for the Ottoman provincial system, which would later be expanded to govern the vast empire stretching across 3 continents. By creating clear lines of authority and codifying administrative responsibilities, Orhan ensured that local governance could operate effectively without undermining the central government. Orhan also employed diplomacy and strategic alliances as tools of consolidation and expansion. While some historical accounts suggest that he married a Byzantine princess, a claim debated by scholars, the use of marital alliances to secure loyalty and strengthen political ties was a hallmark of his strategy. Orhan cultivated alliances with neighbouring Turkish tribes, Byzantine leaders, and regional powers, demonstrating a pragmatic approach that complemented his military campaigns. By combining diplomacy with force, Orhan was able to expand the Ottoman Principality while minimizing unnecessary conflict and integrating diverse groups into the emerging state. Culturally and religiously, Orhan emphasized Islam as a unifying and legitimizing force. He commissioned mosques, madrasas, and other religious institutions in newly conquered territories, promoting education, scholarship, and religious practice. These institutions reinforced the Ottoman role as defenders of the faith and helped integrate Muslim and non-Muslim populations under a shared political and spiritual framework. Orhan's focus on religious and cultural consolidation provided a model for balancing authority, faith, and societal cohesion, which would remain central to Ottoman governance for centuries. Economically, Orhan capitalized on the conquest of Bursa, the first major Ottoman capital. The city's strategic location on trade routes between east and west allowed it to flourish as a commercial hub. Orhan supported the development of marketplaces, encouraged artisanal production, and promoted trade, establishing Bursa as both an economic and political centre. The city became a model for urban development in the Ottoman realm, demonstrating how strategic conquest could be leveraged to build sustainable revenue streams, strengthen administrative control, and support further expansion. Economic growth under Orhan enhanced the state's capacity to fund military campaigns and public works, solidifying the principality's long-term stability. In summary, Orhan's reign was a formative period that transformed the Ottoman Principality into a centralized and institutionalized state. Through military reforms, administrative organization, strategic alliances, religious patronage, and economic development, he laid the foundations for an empire that would grow into one of history's most powerful powers. Orhan's vision combined pragmatism, diplomacy, and forward-looking statecraft, ensuring that the Ottomans were prepared not only to expand territorially, but also to sustain governance, cultural development, and societal cohesion over the long term. His innovations set the stage for future sultans to continue the expansion of Ottoman power, establishing a resilient political and military framework that would endure for centuries. Ottoman military innovations and tactics. The success of the Ottoman Empire was built on a combination of military innovation, strategic adaptability, and organizational skill. From its origins as a small tribal principality to a transcontinental empire, the Ottomans continuously refined their military techniques, weaponry, and command structures to maintain dominance on the battlefield. These innovations allowed them to defeat rival powers and expand across Anatolia, the Balkans, and beyond. One of the most important developments was the establishment of a professional standing army. Under Orhan, the Ottomans created an early or proto-Janissary corps, a unit of loyal, disciplined soldiers directly tied to the Sultan rather than tribal or local allegiances. This corps laid the groundwork for the fully institutionalized Janissaries, formalized later under Murad. Recruited primarily through the Div-Shirm system, Christian boys were converted to Islam, trained in military and administrative skills, and integrated into the central army. This created a cohesive, loyal force capable of executing complex campaigns. The Ottomans were also early adopters of gunpowder technology, which distinguished them from many contemporary armies. Cannons and bombards were crucial in sieges, particularly during the capture of fortified cities. The most famous example came during the 1453 siege of Constantinople, when massive cannons helped breach the city's walls, ending Byzantine rule. Even before that, the Ottomans used artillery in smaller-scale sieges, combining firepower with careful planning to maximize effectiveness. Siege warfare was another area of Ottoman expertise. Engineers and specialized units constructed siege engines including battering rams, siege towers, and mobile platforms. Their campaigns were often methodical and prolonged, designed to exhaust defenders rather than rely solely on direct assaults. This patience and technical skill ensured success against fortified cities across Anatolia and the Balkans. The Ottomans' cavalry, particularly the Sipahi, formed the backbone of their mobile striking forces. Heavily armed and trained for mounted combat, the Sipahi enabled rapid maneuvers, flanking attacks, and targeted strikes against enemy formations. Their integration with infantry and artillery demonstrated a sophisticated combined arms approach. Flexibility and strategy was a hallmark of Ottoman military leadership. Commanders adjusted tactics to terrain, enemy composition, and campaign objectives. This adaptability allowed them to conduct large-scale battles, rapid raids, and sieges with equal effectiveness. Even naval operations reflected this flexibility. The Ottoman navy, equipped with large warships and skilled sailors, secured control over trade routes in the Mediterranean, later extending into the Red Sea and Indian Ocean. Overall, Ottoman military success rested on innovation, organization, and adaptability. The proto-Janissary system, effective use of gunpowder, expertise in siege warfare, skilled cavalry, and strategic flexibility created a powerful military capable of sustaining an empire across multiple continents. These innovations not only ensured battlefield victories but also allowed the Ottomans to maintain cohesion, project power, and secure their place as one of history's most formidable empires. The capture of Gallipoli, a strategic victory. The capture of Gallipoli in 1354 marked a pivotal moment in the early expansion of the Ottoman Empire, representing both a strategic and symbolic milestone. Located on the European side of the Dardanelles Strait, Gallipoli controlled access to the Aegean and Black Seas, making it a critical hub for trade, communication, and military operations. For the Ottomans, securing Gallipoli not only provided a foothold in Europe, but also demonstrated their growing influence and capacity for opportunistic expansion, signalling the beginning of a sustained presence on the European continent that would eventually reshape the political landscape of the Balkans. At the time, Gallipoli was under Byzantine control, but the Byzantine Empire was in severe decline. Internal strife, economic instability, and a weakened military rendered the Byzantines incapable of defending all their frontier territories effectively. The city's fortifications were long-standing, but had suffered from neglect and poor maintenance. In 1354, a major earthquake struck the region, severely damaging Gallipoli's defences and leaving the town particularly vulnerable. Orhan, the Ottoman ruler and son of Osman III, recognised the opportunity presented by this natural disaster and acted decisively. Ottoman forces swiftly moved to occupy the city, avoiding a prolonged siege and minimising potential losses. This action demonstrated the Ottomans' ability to exploit both political and environmental circumstances to their advantage, a hallmark of their early expansion strategy. The capture of Gallipoli was a carefully calculated strategic move, part of a broader Ottoman plan to expand across the Dardanelles into Europe. By this point, the Ottomans had consolidated power in northwestern Anatolia, establishing a strong and organised military capable of rapid, coordinated operations. Gallipoli's acquisition provided a secure base from which to project power into Thrace and the wider Balkan region. The town's strategic location allowed the Ottomans to monitor and control maritime traffic between the Aegean and Black Seas, ensuring effective communication, supply lines, and logistical support for future campaigns. Moreover, controlling Gallipoli enabled the Ottomans to oversee key river crossings and trade routes, further consolidating their influence in European territories. Gallipoli also had symbolic significance. Its capture represented the Ottomans' first permanent foothold in Europe, signalling the start of their transcontinental expansion. This milestone demonstrated the growing sophistication of Ottoman leadership, particularly under Orhan, who combined military skill with diplomatic and strategic foresight. By taking the city without the need for prolonged conflict, the Ottomans showed that they could achieve objectives through timing, planning, and calculated opportunism, rather than relying solely on brute force. The fall of Gallipoli sent a clear message to neighbouring powers, including the Byzantines and Balkan principalities, that the Ottomans were a rising power capable of projecting influence beyond Anatolia. In addition to military and strategic considerations, the capture of Gallipoli had long-term administrative and social implications. The town was gradually integrated into the Ottoman administrative system, providing a model for governance in newly acquired European territories. Ottoman officials established local administration, built infrastructure, and introduced Islamic institutions alongside existing Byzantine traditions, facilitating a smooth transition and minimizing resistance. The settlement also became a staging ground for further Ottoman incursions into the Balkans, enabling systematic expansion and consolidation of power across southeastern Europe. The presence of a European base allowed the Ottomans to respond quickly to threats, support Allied forces, and maintain supply lines for campaigns that would eventually reach deep into the Balkans. The seizure of Gallipoli exemplified the Ottomans' strategic pragmatism. By capitalizing on Byzantine weakness, local political dynamics, and natural disasters, Orhan strengthened Ottoman territorial control without incurring heavy losses. This approach became a hallmark of early Ottoman expansion, blending military initiative, diplomacy, and opportunism in a manner that allowed the empire to grow steadily and sustainably. The success at Gallipoli set a precedent for future operations, illustrating how the Ottomans leveraged both environmental and geopolitical factors to secure long-term advantage. In conclusion, the capture of Gallipoli in 1354 was more than a tactical victory. It was a turning point in the early history of the Ottoman Empire. It provided a critical foothold in Europe, enhanced the Ottoman strategic reach, and demonstrated the effective combination of opportunistic action and long-term planning. The event laid the groundwork for centuries of European expansion, reinforcing the Ottomans' reputation as a rising power capable of integrating military, diplomatic, and administrative strategies. Gallipoli's capture marked the beginning of a new phase in Ottoman history, one in which the empire transitioned from a regional Anatolian principality to a transcontinental power with enduring influence in Europe and beyond. Establishing the Ottoman capital, Edirne, historically known as Adrianople, became the second capital of the Ottoman Empire in 1369, following the capture of Gallipoli. The decision to move the capital from Bursa to Edirne reflected the empire's expanding ambitions in Europe and was a strategic move that strengthened Ottoman control over newly acquired territories. This relocation played a crucial role in consolidating Ottoman influence in the Balkans and facilitating the empire's continued expansion. Edirne's strategic value lay in its location near the Balkans, at the crossroads of the empire's Anatolian and European domains. By moving the capital there, Sultan Murad III established a strong political and military presence in Europe, allowing for quicker responses to threats and more effective administration of European holdings. The city's position along the Maritsa River also facilitated trade and transportation, linking the Ottoman heartlands in Anatolia with European markets and enhancing the empire's economic influence. Beyond logistics, Edirne held symbolic significance as a centre of Ottoman authority. Moving the capital projected the empire's power into Europe, signalling its growing status as a formidable regional power. Under Murad II, Edirne developed into a hub of culture, religion, and administration, strengthening cohesion among the empire's diverse populations and reinforcing the Sultan's legitimacy. While Bursa had served effectively as the first capital under Orhan I, its location was less practical for European campaigns. Edirne, closer to the frontier, provided the Ottomans with an advantageous base to support further military operations, including the eventual conquest of Constantinople. The city's development under Ottoman rule included the construction of mosques, madrasas, marketplaces, and administrative buildings, transforming Edirne into a vibrant political, cultural, and intellectual centre. The relocation also reflected a broader Ottoman strategy of integrating conquered territories into the state. By establishing administrative and religious institutions in Edirne, Murad strengthened loyalty among local populations, promoted Islam as a unifying force, and laid the groundwork for effective governance across the expanding empire. In conclusion, the establishment of Edirne as the Ottoman capital marked a turning point in the empire's evolution. It combined strategic foresight, administrative planning, and cultural development, positioning the Ottomans for sustained expansion into Europe. The move underscored the empire's growing power and sophistication, setting the stage for the eventual conquest of Constantinople and the Ottomans' enduring influence across both Europe and Asia, sultans, ministers, and the early government system. The early Ottoman government was centered on the Sultan, who served as both political and religious leader of the empire. As the ultimate authority, the Sultan held supreme power over civil, military, and judicial matters. Beyond military victories, the Sultan's legitimacy was rooted in his role as protector of Islam and guardian of the empire's territories, providing both spiritual and temporal authority to maintain social cohesion and order. Supporting the Sultan was a hierarchical system of ministers, advisors, and bureaucrats that enabled the administration of a rapidly expanding state. At the top of this system was the vizier, the Sultan's chief advisor who oversaw military campaigns, managed state finances, and guided key political decisions. Over time, particularly during the reign of Mehmed, the vizier's role became more institutionalized, and the divan, or imperial council, was formalized. This council of senior advisors met regularly to deliberate on policy, ensuring that the Sultan's decisions were informed by expert counsel. Other officials included the deftadar, responsible for treasury and fiscal management, and the qadi, the chief judge tasked with upholding Islamic law. These roles were essential in maintaining stability, as officials administered taxation, legal disputes, and governance, allowing the central authority to function efficiently across diverse territories. The Ottomans also implemented a provincial system to govern their expanding empire. Provinces were overseen by beylerbeyes, governors, or sanjak beys, district governors, who exercised considerable autonomy in local administration while remaining accountable to the Sultan. This system allowed for flexible governance across regions with varying languages, cultures, and economic structures, balancing central control with local adaptability. The early Ottoman government drew on Islamic traditions while incorporating elements from Byzantine and Persian administrative practices. Military leadership, religious authority, and bureaucratic organization were carefully integrated, creating a governance model that combined pragmatism with legitimacy. This system enabled the empire to maintain order, administer justice, and coordinate military and economic activities, laying the foundation for centuries of Ottoman resilience and expansion. The role of the Janissaries in expanding the empire. The Janissaries were a cornerstone of the Ottoman military system and played a central role in the empire's expansion, governance, and consolidation of power. Established in the 14th century under Sultan Orhan III, the Janissary Corps evolved into an elite military institution renowned for its discipline, loyalty, and strategic effectiveness. Their contribution to the Ottoman Empire extended beyond the battlefield, influencing political structures, administrative control, and the integration of newly conquered territories. By combining professional military organization with centralized loyalty to the Sultan, the Janissaries became a key factor in the transformation of the Ottomans from a frontier principality into a formidable empire spanning 3 continents. The origins of the Janissaries are closely tied to the Ottoman devshirme system. This system involved the periodic recruitment of Christian boys from conquered regions, primarily in the Balkans, who were taken from their families, converted to Islam, and trained rigorously to serve the empire. The devshirme program was both a social and military innovation, ensuring a steady supply of soldiers who were loyal exclusively to the Sultan, rather than to tribal or regional authorities. These young recruits underwent strict military, physical, and religious training, which instilled in them discipline, obedience, and a strong sense of duty. The Janissaries' separation from their native communities and complete dedication to the Sultan created a corps that was professional, cohesive, and capable of executing complex military operations. The military prowess of the Janissaries was critical to Ottoman expansion. They were among the first standing armies in the region to make extensive use of firearms, early cannons, and other gunpowder weapons, providing the Ottomans with a technological edge over many of their adversaries. Their ability to coordinate infantry, artillery, and siege tactics allowed the Ottomans to overcome formidable fortifications and entrenched positions, such as those of the Byzantine Empire. The conquest of Constantinople in 1453 under Sultan Mehmed II is one of the most famous demonstrations of the Janissaries' military effectiveness. Their disciplined infantry, supported by massive cannons and innovative siege strategies, breached the walls of Constantinople, ending Byzantine rule and opening the gateway for Ottoman expansion into southeastern Europe. This victory marked a turning point in world history, illustrating how a professional, loyal, and technologically advanced corps could decisively alter the balance of power in the region. Beyond their battlefield contributions, the Janissaries played a vital role in consolidating Ottoman authority in newly acquired territories. Following conquests, the corps were stationed in key cities and frontier regions to maintain order, suppress rebellions, and enforce the Sultan's rule. Their presence ensured that distant provinces remained integrated into the central administration, preventing the emergence of autonomous or rebellious local powers. The Janissaries also acted as a stabilizing force during periods of political transition, reinforcing Ottoman law, collecting taxes, and supporting local governance structures. In essence, they were not only warriors but also agents of state consolidation, combining military strength with administrative enforcement to expand and stabilize the empire. The influence of the Janissaries extended into the political sphere as well. While initially focused on military duties, their close proximity to the Sultan and the central court allowed them to wield significant political influence. They could support or challenge the succession of sultans, intervene in palace intrigues, and at times even dictate policy decisions. This political power grew over time, particularly as the corps became more organized and entrenched within Ottoman society. Although the Janissaries' later centuries were marked by increasing corruption, resistance to reforms, and political interference, their early contributions were instrumental in establishing Ottoman dominance and central authority across vast territories. In addition to military, administrative, and political roles, the Janissaries shaped the social and cultural fabric of the empire. They became a distinct social class with their own traditions, privileges, and influence. Their barracks and garrisons often served as centres of economic activity, training, and social organisation, providing a network of loyal Ottoman personnel throughout the empire. The core also fostered a sense of Ottoman identity among diverse populations, promoting Islam and loyalty to the Sultan as unifying principles. This integration of military, social, and religious functions made the Janissaries essential to both the expansion and cohesion of the empire. The long-term impact of the Janissaries on Ottoman military strategy and empire building cannot be overstated. Their creation represented a fundamental shift in military organisation, introducing a standing, professional army that combined loyalty, discipline, and advanced weaponry. This model enabled the Ottomans to project power over long distances, adapt to changing military technologies, and maintain control over diverse and far-flung territories. The Janissaries' success demonstrated how institutionalized military innovation, coupled with loyalty to centralized authority, could provide the foundation for an empire capable of sustained expansion and governance. In conclusion, the Janissaries were far more than an elite military corps. They were a foundational pillar of the Ottoman state. Through disciplined training, strategic military skill, and unwavering loyalty to the Sultan, they enabled the Ottomans to conquer new lands, consolidate authority, and maintain stability across a vast and diverse empire. Their integration into the administrative, political, and social structures of the state ensured that military victories translated into lasting governance and cultural cohesion. The Janissaries' role in shaping the early Ottoman Empire was central to its transformation from a frontier principality into one of history's most enduring and influential empires, leaving a legacy that shaped the trajectory of the Middle East, southeastern Europe, and the Mediterranean for centuries. The influence of trade routes on Ottoman growth. The strategic control of trade routes was one of the most crucial factors in the rise, expansion, and consolidation of the Ottoman Empire. Situated at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, the Ottomans were uniquely positioned to dominate vital land and maritime routes that connected major civilizations. This geographic advantage enabled the empire not only to accumulate wealth, but also to project political and military power over a vast and diverse region. By controlling the flow of commerce, the Ottomans secured the economic foundation necessary for sustaining a professional army, a centralized bureaucracy, and a complex network of provincial governance, all of which underpinned the empire's long-term expansion. The Silk Road, the preeminent overland trade network linking Europe and Asia, was among the most significant sources of wealth and influence for the Ottomans. By the 14th century, the Mongol Empire, which had previously ensured the stability of transcontinental trade, was in decline. This created a power vacuum that the Ottomans were able to fill, especially in the western corridors of the Silk Road passing through Anatolia. Controlling these routes gave the Ottomans access to highly sought-after commodities such as silk, spices, precious metals, gems, and finely woven textiles. The economic benefits were multifaceted. Not only did trade generate revenue through tariffs and customs duties, but it also allowed the empire to invest in infrastructure such as caravanserais, roads, and marketplaces, which facilitated further trade and enhanced the cohesion of the state. Moreover, the wealth flowing into the empire supported the development of a standing army, including the Janissaries, and financed military campaigns that expanded Ottoman territory in both Europe and Asia. Maritime trade routes were equally critical to Ottoman economic and strategic power. The empire's control over the Dardanelles and Bosphorus Straits, as well as other key waterways, allowed it to regulate the movement of goods between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. These straits were essential for the transportation of grain, timber, and other natural resources from Eastern Europe and the Black Sea region. By controlling access, the Ottomans could impose tariffs, secure monopolies on essential commodities, and exert leverage over neighbouring states and trading partners. The ability to monitor maritime traffic not only reinforced economic strength, but also served as a strategic tool for diplomacy and military planning, enabling the empire to project influence far beyond its immediate borders. The Ottomans also participated in the global spice trade, linking Asian markets to Europe. Spices such as pepper, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg were highly valued across Europe, and controlling access to these goods enhanced the empire's wealth and international importance. Cities under Ottoman rule, such as Istanbul, Aleppo, and Cairo, became major hubs for merchants from diverse regions, facilitating exchanges of goods, culture, and technology. The presence of European and Asian merchants in Ottoman cities created cosmopolitan commercial centres, where new ideas in finance, navigation, and science were exchanged alongside material goods. This interaction stimulated intellectual and cultural growth within the empire, contributing to its reputation as a centre of learning, trade, and artistic production. Trade routes also had a profound impact on the social and political organisation of the Ottoman Empire. The revenues derived from commerce supported the development of a sophisticated bureaucracy capable of managing the empire's vast and diverse territories. Taxes collected on trade-funded public works, including bridges, mosques, and educational institutions, which in turn enhanced the legitimacy and authority of the central government. Furthermore, by securing and protecting trade networks, the Ottomans strengthened relationships with merchant communities and local elites, fostering social stability and loyalty. The empire's ability to integrate economic and political strategy through trade was a defining feature of its sustained growth and influence. Cultural and intellectual life in the Ottoman Empire was deeply intertwined with trade. The flow of goods brought exposure to new technologies, artistic styles, and philosophical ideas. Merchants, scholars, and artisans travelling along trade routes introduced innovations that influenced Ottoman architecture, painting, literature, and science. Major urban centres such as Istanbul, Bursa, and Edirne became melting pots of cultures, attracting scholars, diplomats, and traders from across Europe, Asia, and North Africa. This cosmopolitan environment encouraged experimentation in the arts and sciences, leading to a flourishing of culture that would define the empire's golden age during the 16th century under Suleiman the Magnificent. The military and economic advantages gained through trade were closely linked. By controlling strategic routes and commercial hubs, the Ottomans could finance advanced weaponry, fortifications, and naval expeditions, ensuring that their military power remained formidable relative to regional rivals. This integration of economic and military strategy allowed the empire to respond effectively to threats from European powers, the Safavids, and other neighbouring states, while simultaneously pursuing territorial expansion. In conclusion, the strategic control of trade routes was central to the growth, consolidation, and long-term stability of the Ottoman Empire. Overland routes such as the Silk Road and maritime passages through the Dardanelles, Bosphorus, and Mediterranean were sources of immense wealth and influence. These networks not only generated revenue but also facilitated cultural exchange, political authority, and military capacity. By leveraging its geographic position and protecting commerce, the Ottoman Empire secured economic dominance, promoted cultural and intellectual advancement, and established a foundation for centuries of imperial power. Trade was not merely an economic activity for the Ottomans, it was a strategic instrument that shaped the trajectory of the empire, transforming it into one of history's most enduring and influential powers. The Conquest of Constantinople, a defining moment. The Conquest of Constantinople in 1453 represented a pivotal turning point in world history. The city, once the heart of the Byzantine Empire, had long stood as a symbol of Christian authority and a strategic gateway connecting Europe and Asia. For the Ottomans, capturing Constantinople was both a military triumph and a cultural milestone, reshaping the geopolitical landscape for centuries to come. Ottoman forces, commanded by Sultan Mehmed II, began the siege in April 1453. The Byzantine Empire, weakened by internal divisions and external pressures, was ill-equipped to resist the Ottomans' disciplined and innovative army. Constantinople's legendary defensive walls, which had withstood centuries of attacks, could not withstand the Ottomans' advanced siege technology. Mehmed II deployed massive cannons, a groundbreaking military innovation capable of firing enormous stone projectiles. These cannons gradually breached the city's formidable fortifications after weeks of continuous bombardment. The siege was long and grueling, lasting nearly 2 months. The defenders, led by Emperor Constantine IV, Palaiologos, resisted fiercely but were vastly outnumbered, with dwindling supplies and reinforcements blocked by Ottoman naval forces. Mehmed's strategy combined land assaults with control of the sea, demonstrating his tactical brilliance and mastery of combined arms warfare. On May 29, 1453, the Ottoman forces finally broke through the walls, entering the city and effectively ending the Byzantine Empire, which had endured for over 1,000 years. Constantinople was renamed Istanbul. becoming the new Ottoman capital. This conquest cemented Mehmed II's reputation as a masterful strategist and marked the Ottoman Empire's emergence as a dominant power in Europe and the Middle East. The fall of Constantinople also had profound cultural and religious consequences. Islam gained prominence in a city long associated with Christianity, while the Hagia Sophia was converted into a mosque, symbolizing the new era. At the same time, the Ottomans preserved the city's libraries, intellectual resources, and artistic heritage, integrating this wealth of knowledge into their empire. In conclusion, the conquest of Constantinople was a defining event that reshaped history. It ended the Byzantine Empire, established the Ottomans as a major world power, and transformed Istanbul into a vibrant cultural, religious, and political centre. The victory demonstrated the empire's military prowess, strategic vision, and ability to merge conquest with cultural assimilation, laying the foundation for centuries of Ottoman dominance across 3 continents. The rise of Mehmed II, Conqueror of Constantinople. Mehmed II, famously known as Mehmed the Conqueror, is one of the most celebrated figures in Ottoman history, best remembered for his decisive conquest of Constantinople in 1453. His rise to power and military achievements transformed the Ottoman Empire into a formidable force across both Europe and Asia. Born in 1432, Mehmed was the son of Sultan Murad II, during a period when the Ottoman Empire was expanding rapidly, but also grappling with internal unrest and external threats. At just 12 years old, Mehmed was appointed co-ruler alongside his father. His early years were tumultuous, marked by rebellions and political instability. In 1444, following his father's temporary abdication, Mehmed briefly lost the throne, only to regain it later in 1451 after internal conflicts were resolved. From the beginning, Mehmed's ambition was clear. He aimed not only to preserve his father's territories, but to expand the empire further. The Byzantine Empire was weakening, and Constantinople, its capital, remained a strategic obstacle to Ottoman dominance. Mehmed recognized that capturing the city would secure his empire's eastern Mediterranean frontier and establish Ottoman supremacy in the region. In 1453, at the age of 21, Mehmed II launched a meticulously planned siege on Constantinople, a city that had withstood numerous attacks over the centuries. The Byzantine defenders, commanded by Emperor Constantine the Stanthus Palaiologos, were vastly outnumbered and lacked the resources to resist the Ottomans effectively. Mehmed's most notable innovation was the use of enormous cannons, which played a decisive role in breaching the city's legendary walls. Additionally, the Ottoman navy blocked supply routes, preventing reinforcements or escape for the defenders. The siege lasted over 2 months. Mehmed's forces systematically weakened the city's defences, and on May 29, 1453, they launched a final assault, breaching the walls and entering the city. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of a new era for the Ottomans. The city was renamed Istanbul and became the empire's new capital, solidifying Mehmed's legacy as one of history's greatest conquerors. Mehmed II's rise to power and his conquest of Constantinople had far-reaching consequences. The capture of the city gave the Ottomans control over the strategic crossroads between Europe and Asia, signalling the rise of Islam as a dominant influence in the region. Mehmed's leadership, military strategy, and vision for a unified, powerful empire ensured his enduring place among the most influential sultans in Ottoman history. The transformation of Constantinople into Istanbul, the conquest of Constantinople, by Sultan Mehmed II in 1453 was a defining moment in world history, and its transformation into Istanbul marked the start of a new era for the Ottoman Empire. The fall of Constantinople not only ended the Byzantine Empire, which had endured for over 1,000 years, but also turned the city into the political, cultural and economic heart of the Ottoman state. Upon capturing the city, Mehmed II immediately began transforming it into the empire's new capital. Securing the city was a top priority, as it had long been the target of numerous sieges. Mehmed reinforced its fortifications, ensuring that Constantinople's strategic location along the Bosphorus Strait would serve both military and commercial purposes. The city now acted as a vital link between Europe and Asia, giving the Ottomans control over key trade routes. The transformation was not only political and military, but also cultural and religious. Mehmed II, a visionary ruler, sought to unify the diverse populations within the city. He allowed Christians and Jews to continue practicing their faiths, preserving Constantinople's multicultural character. At the same time, Islam became the dominant religion, with mosques and Islamic institutions established throughout the city. The most iconic of these religious changes was the conversion of the Hagia Sophia, the grand Byzantine cathedral, into a mosque. This symbolized the triumph of Islam in the region and initiated a long tradition of a mosque construction in Istanbul. The Hagia Sophia would come to represent the city's dual heritage, blending its Byzantine past with its Ottoman Islamic identity. Mehmed II also invested heavily in infrastructure. He repaired old buildings, improved roads, and commissioned new architectural projects, transforming Istanbul into a thriving urban centre. The construction of the Topkapi Palace as the Sultan's residence demonstrated the grandeur of the Ottoman court. The city's prime location fostered economic growth, making Istanbul a major hub for trade between East and West, and attracting merchants, scholars, and artists from across the world. The city's transformation was not only physical, but also cultural. The Ottomans established a new Islamic-centered foundation that shaped Istanbul's identity for centuries. The former Byzantine capital became a symbol of Ottoman power, religious authority, and cultural fusion. As the empire expanded, Istanbul grew into a vibrant metropolis, remaining the empire's heart for over 400 years. In conclusion, Mehmed II's transformation of Constantinople into Istanbul was a monumental achievement that reshaped the city both physically and culturally. The Ottomans turned it into a flourishing capital, blending Byzantine heritage with Ottoman innovation. Today, Istanbul stands as a testament to this rich history, a city that bridges continents, cultures, and centuries. Mehmed II's cultural and administrative changes, Sultan Mehmed II, known as Mehmed the Conqueror, was not only a brilliant military strategist, but also a visionary ruler who implemented profound cultural and administrative reforms that shaped the Ottoman Empire for centuries. His reign, which began in 1444 and lasted until his death in 1481, was marked by efforts to consolidate power, enhance the empire's cultural life, and establish lasting institutions. One of Mehmed II's most significant achievements was transforming Constantinople into the new Ottoman capital, Istanbul. Following the city's conquest in 1453, he sought to create a vibrant centre of political, cultural, and religious life. He invited scholars, artists, and merchants from across Europe and Asia, fostering intellectual exchange and making Istanbul a leading cultural hub in the Islamic world and a prominent city of the Renaissance. Culturally, Mehmed II was deeply invested in the arts and actively promoted both Islamic and Byzantine artistic traditions. He commissioned grand architectural projects, including mosques, schools, and bridges, which combined Ottoman design with Byzantine elements. The Fatih Mosque, constructed under his orders in Istanbul, became a masterpiece of Ottoman architecture and a lasting symbol of imperial power. Mehmed II was also a patron of learning. He established institutions for theology, law, and philosophy, and supported the translation of classical Greek and Roman texts into Turkish. Understanding the value of knowledge for governance and culture, he made his court a centre for intellectual and artistic activity. His preservation and promotion of classical works also contributed indirectly to the European Renaissance. Administratively, Mehmed II centralised power, ensuring that the Sultan controlled the military, judiciary, and economy. He established a legal code that blended Islamic law, sharia, with local customs, creating a system capable of governing the empire's diverse populations efficiently. A key administrative innovation was the millet system, which allowed religious and ethnic communities to manage their own personal law and religious affairs. This approach promoted tolerance and helped maintain peace among Muslims, Christians, and Jews. By granting autonomy while ensuring loyalty, Mehmed fostered stability within the empire. Mehmed II also strengthened the military. He reorganized the army, incorporated modern tactics, and deployed new technologies like large cannons, which were decisive in the conquest of Constantinople. The Janissary Corps, a professional army loyal directly to the Sultan, provided a disciplined and centralized military force, ensuring the security of his empire. In conclusion, Mehmed II's cultural and administrative reforms were essential in shaping the Ottoman Empire into a powerful and enduring state. By centralizing authority, promoting intellectual and artistic development, and fostering religious tolerance, He created the foundations for an empire that would thrive for centuries and leave a lasting legacy in world history. The integration of Eastern and Western influences. A defining feature of the Ottoman Empire was its remarkable ability to blend Eastern and Western influences, creating a unique culture that spanned 3 continents. This integration permeated politics, religion, art, architecture, and military strategy. By drawing on the strengths of both traditions, the Ottomans were able to rise to power and maintain a vast and diverse empire for centuries. Politically, the Ottomans combined the administrative systems of the Islamic world with Byzantine governance practices. Islamic law, or Sharia, formed the foundation of the Ottoman legal system, while Byzantine methods shaped taxation, military organization, and provincial administration. The Byzantine approach to local governance, granting regional leaders or governors some autonomy, was adapted into the Ottoman millet system. This allowed religious and ethnic communities to maintain self-rule while remaining loyal to the Sultan, fostering religious tolerance and social harmony across the empire. In military affairs, the Ottomans similarly integrated Eastern and Western strategies. They drew on the Mongols' fast-moving cavalry tactics and Byzantine expertise in siege warfare. Their armies further combined these traditional strategies with innovations such as large cannons and gunpowder, which proved decisive in the conquest of Constantinople in 1453. By merging Eastern-inspired mobility with Western technological advancements, the Ottoman military became a powerful and flexible force capable of conquering and holding vast territories. Culturally, the Ottomans occupied a crossroads between East and West, which is evident in their art and architecture. Ottoman architectural achievements reflect this synthesis, with Byzantine and Islamic influences intertwined. The most famous example is the Hagia Sophia, originally a Byzantine cathedral, which was converted into a mosque after the conquest of Constantinople. The Ottomans preserved the iconic dome and central plan while adding minarets, Islamic calligraphy, and large courtyards, creating an architectural symbol of their power and cultural fusion. The Ottomans also embraced Western knowledge in science, literature, and philosophy. During Suleiman the Magnificent's reign, the empire experienced a flourishing of arts and intellectual pursuits. Western works in astronomy, medicine, and philosophy were translated and studied alongside Islamic scholarship, producing a rich and diverse intellectual tradition. This openness to ideas from both East and West strengthened the empire's cultural and scientific achievements. In conclusion, the integration of Eastern and Western influences was central to Ottoman success. By combining the best elements of both traditions, the Ottomans built a culturally rich, politically stable, and militarily powerful empire. Their ability to adapt and synthesize diverse influences enabled the Ottoman Empire to thrive and maintain dominance for over 6 centuries. The emergence of the Ottoman Navy. The rise of the Ottoman Navy was a crucial element in the empire's expansion and lasting success. It allowed the Ottomans to control key maritime trade routes, extend their influence across seas, and defend their territories from naval threats. Over time, the Ottomans transformed from a primarily land-based power into a formidable maritime force capable of challenging European and Mediterranean rivals. The origins of the Ottoman Navy date back to the early 14th century, as the empire expanded along the Mediterranean and Black Seas. Initially, the Ottomans relied on small local fleets and hired corsairs to raid enemy ships. However, as their empire grew, it became evident that a professional navy was essential to maintain control of vital maritime routes and protect Ottoman interests. Sultan Mehmed II, renowned for conquering Constantinople in 1453, laid the groundwork for the navy's transformation. During the siege, Ottoman ships blockaded the city, cutting off supplies to the Byzantine defenders. This marked one of the earliest large-scale uses of a coordinated Ottoman fleet in military operations. After the conquest, Mehmed invested heavily in developing a professional navy to secure the empire's maritime dominance. A key figure in this development was Admiral Khair al-Din Barbarossa, a former corsair who became chief admiral in the early 16th century. Barbarossa expanded the fleet and established it as a major naval power. Under his command, the Ottomans achieved decisive victories, most notably at the Battle of Preveza in 1538, where they defeated the combined forces of the Holy League. This victory secured Ottoman control over the Mediterranean, particularly the waters off North Africa and southern Europe. The Ottoman navy was instrumental in protecting the empire's coastal territories and facilitating expansion into North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and parts of Italy. It safeguarded trade routes, ensuring the flow of wealth and resources into the empire, and provided a platform for projecting power far beyond Ottoman lands. Beyond military and economic roles, the navy also fostered cultural exchange. Ottoman ships carried goods, knowledge, and artistic influences between East and West, reinforcing the empire's position as a cultural bridge connecting Europe and Asia. In conclusion, the emergence of the Ottoman navy was pivotal to the empire's rise and longevity. From its modest beginnings, it evolved into a powerful maritime force under leaders like Barbarossa, securing Ottoman dominance in the Mediterranean. This naval strength enabled the empire to protect its interests, control critical trade routes, and project power across seas, solidifying its status as a major global power. The role of alliances and marriages in expansion. Alliances and marriages were crucial tools in the Ottoman Empire's expansion, helping the sultans consolidate power, secure borders, and acquire territory without always resorting to military force. These diplomatic strategies enabled the Ottomans to maintain stability across a diverse empire, while extending their influence regionally and internationally. Strategic alliances with neighbouring states were one of the most important ways the Ottomans strengthened their position. Throughout their history, the Ottomans formed pacts with other powers to counter threats and facilitate expansion. For example, during Sultan Mehmed II's reign in the 15th century, the Ottomans allied with the Republic of Venice. This alliance ensured Venetian neutrality, allowing Mehmed to focus on the conquest of Constantinople. By turning potential adversaries into partners, the Ottomans were able to expand into new territories more effectively. Royal marriages were another highly effective and culturally significant method for securing alliances. The Ottomans frequently arranged marriages between members of the Sultan's family and powerful foreign or regional rulers to solidify political and military ties. These unions often served as formal agreements that reinforced loyalty and strengthened Ottoman influence. A notable example is the marriage of Suleiman the Magnificent to Hürrem's Sultan, Roxelana. While personally significant, this marriage also held diplomatic value. Hürrem's background symbolized the empire's openness and helped establish connections with European courts. Family ties through marriage often reinforced the Sultan's authority and facilitated negotiations with foreign powers. Marriages were also used strategically to gain control over territories. Sultan Bayezid II's son married the daughter of the ruler of the Crimean Khanate, reinforcing Ottoman influence in the Black Sea region. Similar marital alliances in the Middle East helped secure regions such as Syria and Egypt, often reducing the need for direct military conquest. Through marriages into local ruling families, the Ottomans also ensured loyalty among newly incorporated territories. Leaders in regions such as Egypt and Persia sought marital ties with the Ottomans, which helped integrate these areas into the empire and maintain political stability. In conclusion, alliances and marriages were multifaceted tools in the Ottoman Empire's expansion strategy. They allowed the Ottomans to acquire territory, maintain internal stability, and secure military and political support while minimizing warfare. Diplomacy, exercised through strategic alliances and royal marriages, played a critical role in establishing the Ottoman Empire as one of history's most powerful and enduring empires. Suleiman the Magnificent, the peak of power. Suleiman the Magnificent, also known as Suleiman Thusun, reigned from 1520 to 1566, and is widely regarded as the most powerful and influential sultan of the Ottoman Empire. His reign marked the peak of Ottoman power, both militarily and culturally, establishing the empire as a dominant force in the 16th century. Suleiman's military achievements were among the most remarkable in Ottoman history. He expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent, conquering vast regions of Central Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. His campaigns in Hungary, particularly the decisive victory at the Battle of Mohacs in 1526, allowed the Ottomans to control much of Hungary and solidified their European presence. Earlier, the conquest of Belgrade in 1521 and the siege of Vienna in 1529 demonstrated the empire's growing power, even though Vienna resisted. Despite this setback, these campaigns ensured Ottoman dominance across Europe, the Middle East and North Africa for decades. Suleiman's reign was equally notable for administrative reforms. He centralized the Ottoman government and strengthened the empire's legal system, earning the title Kanuni, or the lawgiver. He codified a comprehensive legal framework that combined Islamic law, Sharia, with secular regulations, enhancing governance and social stability. These reforms helped sustain the empire for centuries and established a respected system of justice throughout Ottoman territories. Culturally, Suleiman's era was a golden age. Under his patronage, Ottoman art, literature, and architecture flourished. The empire saw the construction of iconic buildings such as the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul, designed by the renowned architect Mimar Sinan. This period also witnessed the rise of Ottoman miniature painting, calligraphy, and poetry, with Suleiman himself contributing as a poet and author. Diplomatically, Suleiman skillfully navigated relations with European powers, including an alliance with France, and managed complex interactions with neighbouring states such as the Safavid Empire in Persia and the Habsburg monarchy. His foreign policy aimed to strengthen Ottoman influence while maintaining military and political stability. In conclusion, Suleiman the Magnificent's reign represented the height of Ottoman power in both territorial reach and cultural achievement. His military conquests, legal reforms, and artistic patronage solidified the empire's status as a dominant world power. Suleiman's legacy endures as a symbol of the Ottoman Empire's golden age. The Ottoman Empire's golden age of culture. The 16th century, particularly under the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, marked the golden age of culture for the Ottoman Empire. During this period, Ottoman art, architecture, literature, and science flourished, transforming Istanbul into a vibrant cultural hub that bridged east and west. Suleiman's leadership not only expanded the empire's territorial reach, but also fostered intellectual and artistic achievements, leaving a rich cultural legacy that influenced generations to come. Architecture was one of the most striking expressions of this golden age. Guided by the renowned architect Mimar Sinan, the Ottomans transformed Istanbul and other cities with monumental structures. The Süleymaniye Mosque, commissioned by Suleiman, stands as an iconic example of Ottoman architecture. Its grand dome, intricate tilework, and expansive courtyards exemplify the advanced engineering and aesthetic sensibilities of the time. Structures like the Selimiye Mosque in Edirne similarly showcased Ottoman mastery, serving not only as religious centres, but also as hubs for education, social life, and cultural activity, reflecting the empire's commitment to both faith and community. Ottoman literature also flourished. Poetry, prose, and historical writings thrived under Suleiman's patronage, and the Sultan himself was an accomplished poet. Influenced by Persian and Arab traditions, Ottoman poetry developed a distinct style, often exploring themes of love, philosophy, and nature. Renowned poets such as Baki and Fuzuli contributed works that are still studied today. The imperial court became a centre for writers, scholars, and intellectual exchange, elevating Istanbul as a hub of literary innovation. Calligraphy reached unprecedented heights during this period. The Ottomans perfected scripts such as Diwani and Thuluth, which were used in religious texts, royal decrees, and official documents. Calligraphy was revered not only as an art form but also as a spiritual practice. Sheikh Hamdullah, the most famous calligrapher of the era, revolutionized the craft, setting enduring standards for Ottoman calligraphy. Scientific and medical advancements also characterized this golden age. Ottoman scholars made notable contributions in astronomy, mathematics, and medicine, building upon the knowledge of earlier Islamic and Greek thinkers. The Istanbul Observatory was established to advance the study of the stars, while medical innovations in surgery and pharmacology improved healthcare. These achievements demonstrated the empire's commitment to both intellectual inquiry and practical knowledge. The influence of Ottoman culture extended beyond the elite and royal court, reaching the broader population. By blending traditions from across its vast territories, from the Arab world to the Balkans, the empire fostered a unique Ottoman identity. This cultural synthesis strengthened social cohesion and promoted unity among the empire's diverse peoples. In conclusion, the golden age of culture under Suleiman the Magnificent left an enduring legacy in architecture, literature, art, and science. Istanbul emerged as a cultural beacon, reflecting the empire's ability to merge diverse traditions into a distinct Ottoman heritage. The accomplishments of this era continue to resonate, demonstrating the empire's lasting impact on both the Islamic world and global culture. The legal and administrative reforms under Suleiman the Magnificent, who reigned from 1520 to 1566, is remembered not only for his military conquests, but also for his profound legal and administrative reforms that strengthened the Ottoman Empire. His reign, often referred to as the Golden Age of Ottoman administration, centralized power, enhanced governance, and ensured the smooth operation of an empire spanning 3 continents. One of Suleiman's most notable achievements was the codification of laws, which earned him the title Kanuni, the lawgiver. Prior to his reign, Ottoman law combined Sharia, Islamic law, with customary law, often inconsistently applied across the empire. Suleiman addressed this by consolidating and formalizing the legal system, creating a unified code that blended Sharia with sultanic decrees. These laws were designed to be clear, accessible, and consistently enforced, emphasizing justice and fairness for all citizens, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. The new legal framework regulated taxation, land ownership, trade, and criminal justice, contributing to the empire's stability and order. During Suleiman's reign, the millet system was further refined and expanded. This system allowed religious and ethnic communities to manage personal affairs such as marriage, education, and religious practice while remaining loyal to the Ottoman state. By granting autonomy to non-Muslim populations, including Christians and Jews, the millet system promoted religious tolerance and helped maintain peace within the diverse empire. Suleiman also strengthened the central administration. He introduced a more structured bureaucracy, appointing officials based on merit rather than tribal allegiance or wealth. Viziers, the empire's senior ministers, were selected for their administrative expertise, and the Divan, or imperial council, became a central institution in governance. These reforms created an efficient, effective government capable of managing the vast territories under Ottoman control. Military reforms were another key component of Suleiman's administration. He reorganized the Janissary Corps into a professional loyal force and modernized the army with advanced weaponry and new tactics, including the strategic use of gunpowder. These changes ensured that the Ottoman military remained one of the most formidable in the world. Economic reforms under Suleiman supported trade and financial stability. He protected major trade routes, standardized coinage, and improved tax collection, generating revenue for the empire's bureaucracy and military. These measures strengthened the economic foundations of the state and facilitated its continued expansion. In conclusion, Suleiman the Magnificent's legal and administrative reforms were central to shaping the Ottoman Empire into a powerful, centralized state. His legal codification ensured justice and consistency, while administrative improvements enhanced governance across diverse regions. Combined with military and economic reforms, these changes solidified Suleiman's legacy as one of the greatest rulers in Ottoman history and ensured the empire's longevity and stability for centuries. Challenges from the Safavids and Mamluks. During the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire, under the rule of Suleiman the Magnificent, faced significant challenges from both the Safavid Empire to the east and the Mamluk Sultanate to the south. These two powers threatened the Ottomans' territorial ambitions, security, and influence, leading to prolonged conflicts that tested the empire's military strength, diplomatic skill, and internal cohesion. The Safavid Empire, founded in 1501 by Shah Ismail I, emerged as a major Shia Muslim power in Persia, modern-day Iran. The Safavids and Ottomans, though both Muslim empires, represented rival branches of Islam, Sunni and Shia, adding a religious dimension to their competition. Each claimed to be the true defender of Islam, which intensified the rivalry. Tensions escalated under Sultan Selim I, who recognized the Safavids' growing influence in the Middle East. In 1514, Selim III launched a military campaign against them, culminating in the decisive Battle of Chaldiran near modern-day Turkey. The Ottoman victory severely weakened the Safavid military and halted their westward expansion. Despite this defeat, the Safavids remained a potent rival, and intermittent conflicts over borders and regional influence persisted for centuries, shaping Ottoman foreign policy in the Middle East. To the south, the Mamluks controlled Egypt and parts of the Arabian Peninsula. Originally a powerful military elite who had overthrown the Ayyubids, the Mamluks' power was declining by the early 16th century. The Ottomans viewed them as a major obstacle to controlling the Islamic holy cities of Mecca and Medina, as well as Egypt, which was a crucial centre of trade, culture, and religion. In 1516, Selim II launched campaigns against the Mamluks, achieving a decisive victory at the Battle of Majd Dabik. This success allowed the Ottomans to capture Syria and Egypt, securing control over the pilgrimage routes to Mecca and Medina, and establishing their role as leaders of the Sunni Muslim world. While the Mamluks were defeated, they continued to pose challenges in remote areas, retaining some local support and influence. The dual challenges of the Safavids and Mamluks required the Ottomans to combine military prowess with diplomacy and strategic alliances. Success against the Mamluks solidified Ottoman dominance in the Arab world, while the ongoing rivalry with the Safavids shaped centuries of Ottoman policy in the East. These conflicts tested and strengthened the empire's military and administrative systems, reinforcing its position as one of the most powerful states of the 16th century. In conclusion, the Ottoman Empire's engagements with the Safavids and Mamluks were pivotal in shaping its military and political strategies. These conflicts not only influenced territorial expansion, but also reinforced the Ottomans' religious and political identity, establishing them as the dominant Sunni Muslim power across the Middle East and North Africa. The decline of central power in the late empire. The Ottoman Empire, once one of the most powerful and stable states in the world, began to experience a gradual decline in the 17th century, leading to a weakening of central authority. This erosion of power continued into the 18th and 19th centuries and was driven by a combination of internal and external factors that undermined the effectiveness of the sultans, disrupted governance, and ultimately contributed to the empire's disintegration. One of the primary causes of this decline was the growing corruption and inefficiency within the Ottoman administrative system. In the empire's early days, the sultans had established a highly effective bureaucracy with clear structures and accountability. Over time, however, the quality of leadership deteriorated. Many sultans became preoccupied with personal luxury and distanced themselves from daily governance, allowing corruption to proliferate at all levels of government, from provincial governors to local officials. The Janissary Corps, once an elite and disciplined military force, became increasingly corrupt, prioritizing personal gain over loyalty and frequently resisting the Sultan's commands. The empire's military dominance also waned during this period. While the Ottomans had once commanded a formidable, centralized military, by the 17th century they struggled to adapt to new technologies and tactics. European powers such as Austria, Russia, and France developed more modern armies, challenging Ottoman control in the Balkans and the Middle East. Reliance on outdated strategies and insufficient modernization weakened the central authority, as the Sultan's ability to maintain control over far-flung territories diminished. Economic factors further contributed to the decline. The Ottoman economy, heavily dependent on revenues from its vast territories, began to stagnate. Mismanagement, corruption, and the rise of European trade routes that bypassed Ottoman lands reduced the empire's income. As European powers established direct trade links with Asia and Africa, the Ottomans lost their monopoly over lucrative commerce. The empire's reliance on agriculture and lack of industrial development limited economic growth, reducing the resources available to fund the military and administration. Regional autonomy also undermined central power. As the empire expanded across 3 continents, it became increasingly difficult to govern effectively. Provincial governors, often powerful military leaders or local elites, gained significant independence. In many cases, these leaders acted autonomously, challenging the authority of the Sultan and weakening the cohesion of the empire. Regions such as Egypt, Syria, and the Balkans became centers of semi-independent rule, eroding the unity of Ottoman governance. External pressures exacerbated these internal challenges. From the 17th century onward, the Ottomans faced repeated conflicts with European powers. The Austrian Habsburgs and Russia challenged Ottoman dominance in Eastern Europe, while Persian empires, Safavids and later Qajars, and Arabian tribal groups threatened the empire's eastern and southern borders. A series of military defeats diminished Ottoman influence and territorial control, exposing the empire's vulnerabilities. Efforts to reform the empire in the 18th and 19th centuries, such as the Tanzimat reforms, sought to modernize the military, economy, and administration. However, these reforms faced resistance from conservative factions and were often incompletely implemented. The weakening of central authority also fueled nationalist movements among the empire's diverse ethnic and religious groups, further fracturing its unity and hastening decline. In conclusion, the decline of central power in the Ottoman Empire was the result of intertwined internal inefficiency, corruption, economic stagnation, military setbacks, and external pressures. By the 19th century, the Sultan's ability to govern effectively had been severely weakened, and the empire was no longer the dominant power it had once been. This gradual erosion of authority set the stage for nationalist movements, regional fragmentation, and ultimately the empire's collapse after World War I. The Ottoman Empire's influence on Europe and Asia, spanning over 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire exerted a profound influence on both Europe and Asia. Its strategic position, bridging 2 continents, allowed it to shape the political, economic and cultural landscapes of these regions. Through its vast territories, formidable military power and extensive diplomatic networks, the empire became one of the most significant forces in world history, leaving a legacy that endures to this day. In Europe, the Ottoman Empire had a particularly strong impact in the Balkans and southeastern Europe. Beginning in the late 14th century, Ottoman expansion brought centuries of rule to these regions. The conquest of Constantinople in 1453, a turning point in world history, marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and established the Ottomans as the dominant power in the region. Ottoman rule extended over Greece, Albania, Bulgaria, and parts of Hungary, deeply shaping the political, social, and economic structures of these areas. The empire introduced Islamic culture, influencing architecture, education, and religious practices. Mosques, schools, and cultural landmarks, such as the Suleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul, stand as enduring symbols of Ottoman architectural and cultural ingenuity. Additionally, the Ottomans' control over key trade routes between Europe and Asia positioned them as major players in the global economy, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and people. In Asia, the Ottoman Empire's influence was most pronounced in the Middle East and parts of North Africa. The Ottomans controlled vast territories including modern-day Turkey, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and portions of the Arabian Peninsula. Their governance helped shape the development of Sunni Islam, which became the dominant branch in many areas. As custodians of the Islamic holy cities of Mecca and Medina, the Ottomans reinforced their religious authority and legitimacy throughout the Islamic world. Politically, the Ottomans influenced regional power dynamics through both conflict and diplomacy. Their long-standing rivalry with the Safavid Empire in Persia shaped the borders and religious landscape of the Middle East. Ottoman expansion into North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula influenced the development of Islamic states and governance structures across the region. Furthermore, their interactions with other major powers, such as the Mughal Empire in India, established networks of political, cultural, and economic connections that extended across Asia. In conclusion, the Ottoman Empire's influence on Europe and Asia was vast and multifaceted. Through military conquests, cultural contributions, and control of strategic trade routes, the empire shaped the development of both continents for centuries. Its political, religious, and cultural legacy continues to resonate today, cementing the Ottoman Empire's place as one of the most enduring and impactful powers in world history. The lasting legacy of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, which endured from 1299 to 1922, left an indelible mark on the world. Although the empire officially ended after World War I, its influence continues to resonate across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. The legacy of the Ottomans encompasses a rich tapestry of cultural, political, social, and architectural contributions that shaped societies for centuries. One of the most significant aspects of the Ottoman legacy is its role in shaping the modern Middle East and Southeast Europe. Centuries of Ottoman governance laid the groundwork for political structures and borders that exist today. Countries that emerged from the empire, such as Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and the Balkan states, still reflect Ottoman administrative practices, legal systems, and institutions. The Ottoman model of governance, which combined strong central authority with a millet system to manage diverse religious and ethnic communities, influenced the political evolution of these nations even after independence. The Ottoman legal system also left a lasting imprint, particularly in the integration of Islamic law, Sharia, with secular laws. This unique legal framework influenced modern legal codes in many Muslim-majority countries. Ottoman scholars, judges, and bureaucrats shaped regional legal norms, and many of these traditions endure in the laws of Turkey, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. Culturally, the Ottomans fostered a flourishing of art, architecture, and literature. Ottoman architecture, characterized by grand mosques, intricate tilework, and monumental domes, has had a lasting impact on Islamic design. Iconic structures such as the Süleymaniye Mosque and the Blue Mosque in Istanbul remain enduring symbols of Ottoman architectural mastery, blending Byzantine, Persian, and Islamic influences. In literature, poetry, and calligraphy, figures like Baki and Fuzuli became central to regional literary traditions, reflecting the empire's rich intellectual heritage. The Ottomans also shaped trade and commerce. Situated at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, they controlled key trade routes, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. Ottoman trade networks moved spices, silk, and other valuable commodities across continents. Their naval dominance in the Mediterranean allowed them to influence commerce for centuries, a legacy that persists in the economic orientation of countries like Turkey, Egypt, and Tunisia. Religiously, the Ottoman Empire played a defining role in the Islamic world. As protector of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, the empire reinforced its leadership in Sunni Islam. Ottoman religious institutions, including mosques, schools, and centers of scholarship, preserved and disseminated Islamic knowledge across the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe, leaving a profound impact on the region's spiritual and educational traditions. Finally, the empire's collapse after World War I reshaped the modern world. Its dissolution led to the creation of new nation-states, the redrawing of borders, and the emergence of political ideologies that transformed the region. The founding of modern Turkey under Mustafa Kemal Ataturk marked a deliberate break from Ottoman traditions, yet the empire's cultural, administrative, and religious legacies continued to influence the political and social landscape. In conclusion, the Ottoman Empire's legacy is enduring and multifaceted. From political structures and legal systems to art, architecture, trade, and religion, the Ottomans profoundly shaped the regions they ruled. Despite its collapse, the empire's influence continues to shape the history, identity, and culture of the Middle East, North Africa, and Southeast Europe, standing as a testament to the Ottoman Empire's lasting power and significance.